Guys, we are back. It's your boy EQ, and up next we have why Andrew Schulz's Kendrick Lamar diss is ending his career. Shout out to Fantastic Hip Hop for the video. And yeah, guys, Andrew Schulz is definitely crashing out over a record where his name wasn't even actually mentioned. Honestly, I feel like Kendrick Lamar was honestly referring to Shits and Gigs, the guys who were there, basically allowing it to happen, holding them accountable. Obviously, Andrew Schulz, who is definitely one of those content over everything guys, is definitely going to milk the situation for all it's worth. And guys, grape is never funny. I don't care how creative you think the joke may be, but it's never funny. And honestly, I can see why someone like Dave Chappelle wouldn't like the guy, allegedly. And what's really wild about this situation is that the people defending Andrew Schulz are probably the same ones trying to villainize Kendrick over lyrics in a beef. So yeah, this definitely reeks of hypocrisy. Andrew also responded to O'Shea Jackson, who called him out for it, and all Andrew said was basically refer to No Vaseline. It's probably one of my favorite diss records of all time, which was penned by his father, Ice Cube, which obviously Andrew is using to show similarities between the joke and the lyrics that his father penned. But guys, I'm pretty sure we're all smart enough to know that when Ice Cube was doing it in that No Vaseline record, it was used as a metaphor to describe what Jerry Heller was doing to NWA. Not physically graping somebody. It was not meant to be taken literally, but obviously Andrew Schulz is not of the culture, and he's always admitted to coming from privilege, so this shouldn't really surprise anybody. I feel like Andrew is definitely going to double down. He's definitely going to lean into it. Even after facing the backlash from that Shits and Gigs interview, he was basically calling them out for saying sorry, which his reasoning being that you never say sorry for anything. So yeah, man, this guy is going to double down, and more than likely, he's going to keep it with these jokes until people just stop talking about it, because at the end of the day, the dude is just doing this for attention. But enough dilly-dallying, let's jump right into the video. Again, it's entitled Why Andrew Schulz's Kendrick Lamar diss is ending his career.
Now, when it comes to Kendrick Lamar in 2024, it seems like no matter who the person he is at odds with is, and no matter what Kendrick says,
yeah, the dude is pretty much undefeated this whole year.
When he is calling them out. Whenever somebody has been in any sort of conflict or
pretty much his whole career, actually,
the biggest rapper on the planet right now, they just completely lose all composure and in an attempt to make a response and come back to Kendrick, just end up doing irreversible damage to their own careers instead of doing anything to make him look worse. And now, while earlier in the year, we saw this happen to Drake, of course, and
it's the fact that he never really gives himself an opportunity to do any damage. The only time you ever really hear Kendrick speak on anything is either through his music, through an interview here and there, and at his concerts, because other than that, you don't really hear him publicly like these other guys. These other guys are crashing out on the daily, thinking it's making them look cooler, only to really be hurting them in the end.
Still hasn't come back from it. Now we are seeing another crash out from somebody who tried to clap back at Kendrick Lamar in a much different way with comedian Andrew Schulz, and really with what Schulz just did and how he is handling all of the backlash he is getting from it.
He's so excited for
Drake after Kendrick Lamar has ruined his career in nearly every single way possible, there is almost no way Schulz comes out of this with his career intact. But now, before we go any further into this, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. It helps me out a ton. And so now, when it comes to Kendrick Lamar's latest beef, before we even get into what pushed Kendrick to call Schulz out for his questionable actions on his album GNX's intro track, Whacked Out Murals, when we look at Andrew Schulz, beyond being a comedian who just represents everything wrong with comedy in today's day and age, throughout this entire year, Schulz has been a figure in media and pop culture, who that while Kendrick Lamar was on...
The guy definitely has to be feeling himself. He had the Donald Trump interview, being able to perform in arenas, and this guy wasn't an overnight success, guys. I've been watching Brilliant Idiots for a while. He's been trying to come up for like 10 years now. Having Charlemagne by his side definitely is the thing that catapulted him to where he's at now. And obviously now he feels like he's unstoppable. And pride always comes before the fall, man. So you got to be really careful, because you'll be right back performing at the Comedy Cellar tomorrow, fam.
On a mission to go after Drake, J. Cole, and just change the direction of where hip-hop was going, Schulz constantly bashed Kendrick Lamar and tried to diminish his greatness. And overall, all of Schulz's sentiments were alluding to the fact that Kendrick was a clout chaser for going after Drake, and really for being someone who does not deserve the success and praise that they get. And Schulz never really let up on this standpoint, even after Kendrick clearly won the beef, and like other Drake stans did. He just made excuses when Drake lost and said that Kendrick cheated his way into winning by making false claims and narratives and then stepping over the line, which is going to be important to keep.
Isn't that nuts when Drake is the one that actually stepped over the line first? Kendrick warned him not to take it personal, and obviously Drake didn't listen, to where Kendrick Lamar obliged, which I feel Drake really regrets now.
in mind for later. And so now fast forward to today, and after on Whacked Out Murals, when Kendrick Lamar had a line that was clearly calling out Schulz, Schulz has officially responded to Kendrick Lamar.
I think he's conveying the fact that they shouldn't have let it happen. They shouldn't have let it get to that point. So while more than likely Schulz is that comedian, he's definitely referencing shits and gigs, holding them accountable for the situation.
On his show, and with what he just decided to cook up,
Because if they would have shut it down, it would have been
and
show
seen
over.
just how much Kendrick Lamar can say about his competition, was a pretty light diss in the grand scheme of it all, even if you want to call it that. What Schulz just did is going to go down as one of the worst responses to being called out in a rap lyric by a celebrity of all time. And beyond just that, Schulz is really going to join someone like his idol Drake for being on one of the greatest crash outs of the entire year, because with what he said, after acknowledging that Kendrick dissed him, trying to be funny, and talking about how the GNX album is a good record, but that he's just mad because of the diss. After Schulz made it clear that he would never mess with the people who Kendrick Lamar hangs around with, he then went on to say that because of Kendrick Lamar's height, which again, notice these parallels between him and Drake's insults, that he would be able to—
It's the most surface level of jokes. And you would think for somebody that calls himself a comedian, they'd be above that. But obviously, Andrew is not. He's definitely more of a shot guy. And he's one of those guys that definitely made his career in comedy because of the fact that he has such a huge platform in the podcast world. But yeah, he's going to sell tickets, but that doesn't necessarily make you a great comic. Obviously, we've seen other comedians who got their fame through podcasts just to be complete doo-doo, you know what I mean? He has to realize that his fame is not because he's such a great comic. It's because of the presence he has in the podcast world, in the media world now, because like I said, the dude has done some big interviews, but that can all be lost in the blink of an eye.
To take on Kendrick because of his size and stature, and with the rest of what Schulz said, I can't even say it in this video because it's really that bad, but for those who don't know, what Schulz went on to say in an entire multi-minute bit where he got into extensive detail of what would go down between him and Kendrick Lamar was the—
Akash is so annoying, man. He laughs at Andrew's jokes like his livelihood is in jeopardy.
the same thing that Drake rapped about happening to Kendrick on The Heart Part 6. And what Drake tried to frame as this moment that ruined his life and made him so against everything the OVO rapper stood for in the first place. And that was, of course, the whole Mother Eye section of the track, where Drake misunderstood one of the most devastating and powerful songs Kendrick Lamar has ever wrote, which was about his very own mother's experience and not his. And as Schulz made what may be the strangest comeback to being dissed ever, everyone went crazy over this, as from people who are close to Kendrick Lamar and from TDE just clearly being baffled with the response, to even Drake fans who are now trying to get a win by saying that Kendrick and his camp are soft, as they are now using the stance that there should be rules in what people can say in a back and forth to try and call Schulz out. There has been so much discourse about this moment, and I think when it comes to this situation at its most fundamental level, I mean, this doesn't take a lot to see, but everyone's supporting Schulz and trying to use this to show that Kendrick Lamar has a double standard for things that he can do but not have used against him. It's just blatantly wrong and lacks a sense of skill to really assess the music and media they interact with. And really, to support Schulz here, it just goes against the very roots of both rap and comedy as art forms and as these tools of unfiltered expression. Because let's be clear about this, as Andrew Schulz did and showed, he could have said anything he wanted, and that's exactly what he did. But
of course, he went for the most shocking thing possible, which obviously did not hit. If you're going to joke on something, even if it's taboo, at least make it funny. Obviously, this joke didn't hit. And he will double down on it. He's going to continue to say that he did nothing wrong and that it's freedom of speech. But guys, there is consequences to speech. While you can say what you want, it doesn't mean that it is free of consequences. There's literally stuff that you can say and post that can land you in prison within an hour, fam. So yeah, you can say what you want, but there's always ramifications to it.
But just like if two rappers were beefing, whatever is being used to take down your opponents with words is going to be judged by the people and either rejected or accepted. And to circle back to Kendrick calling out Drake for weird claims and actions, and when it comes to something that both Schulz and others can't understand, Kendrick Lamar calling out Drake for all of his weird actions and claims over the years we have seen worked. Because at the bottom line, it was rooted in reality. And it wasn't just this weird and out of nowhere claim that was saying that he was going to do awful things to Drake. But what Kendrick was saying was actually exposing something that, from what we can see, already had some truth to it. And that maybe a lot of people were just refusing to really see with their own eyes. And so really with Schulz, and just like Drake did with The Heart Part 6, their comments about such a horrible thing, which really, to just frame this in its proper context, If we want to look back at the moment that Kendrick Lamar has rapped about guiding his efforts this year both on Meet the Grams during the beef and Whacked Out Murals now, which was the Cat Williams Shannon Sharp interview, which is now credited for kicking off this year that has
Oh
been
yeah,
all
man.
about
Cat Williams was definitely prophetic, man. 2024 will forever be remembered as a year of exposal. And honestly, I do not feel it's going to end in 2024. Like Kendrick said, man, the party seems to be dying.
exposing the truth. And the one thing that stands out to all of these points now is that Cat Williams said here that this horrible action that Schulz and Drake tried to use in these gotcha moments is never funny no matter what the circumstances are. And I mean, this isn't just a rule of comedy or rap beef for that matter, but it's just a part of human nature because there are things that no matter how you spin them, and especially with the way Schulz got so into detail.
No, it definitely gives off like buck breaking vibes, man. You know what I mean? This is nowhere near funny.
That there is purely no comedic or entertainment value within. And this is the distinction that needs to be made, because just like Drake, who was an absolute sore loser and who had nothing left to say, so he decided to resort to one of the worst things that can happen to try and make
Of course, he succumbed to filing legal action for a hip hop diss, man. At this point, he's past white flag.
fun of Kendrick in one of the most tasteless ways we have ever seen in a diss track. Schulz managed to do the same thing, and maybe even in a worse way, which is saying a lot, just because of how much he went on and on about what he was trying to do. And really, with the situation being this bad for Schulz, it's not an understatement to say that his career really may be over, because just as Schulz did this, now people have been digging into his past where they have found out, just like his buddy DJ Academics and the guy he stands,
Got some
Drake,
nasty
they have
allegations.
some weird cases, which makes something like he did become even more troubling and questionable because the lines just get blurred of when it starts to seem like even in real life,
Like I always say, guys, thou shalt not throw stones if you live in glass houses.
if what he was saying is fully a joke, because some of the things that have been said about him in the past say otherwise. And now, in typical comedian fashion, for better or for worse, but definitely for the worst here, Schulz now is only doubling down on his comments, as when Meek Mill posted about what Schulz said and did right now, Schulz clapped back and made fun of Meek for being someone who was rumored to be involved in situations of the same nature. And this is just a crazy way to talk when everyone is trying to find one more reason to just take you down forever. And really, with this situation, we are only seeing the start of the consequences.
He's definitely following the philosophy of all news is good news, which obviously isn't always the case. While I do think he'll still have a career, it's just going to be relegated, like I said, man, to those hole-in-the-wall comedy rooms.
Of crashing out over rap lyrics, because with Schulz, with his entire brand and with how he disrespected Kendrick Lamar, people who have actually been affected by what he is saying, and in general how he has disrespected hip-hop culture by
He's
trying
the
to make
golden
Lamar
child
seem
right
like
now.
he is the person in the wrong, for the way the genre has retained certain superficial values that his favorite artist Drake has kept prevalent more than ever in this era, which again just shows how delusional and out of touch the guy is. Schulz can't just run away into his own world and let these things blow over, because some of his most valuable ventures are directly rooted in hip-hop culture, as he has an entire show with somebody like Charlemagne.
Exactly.
And even with how wild and over-the-line things Charlemagne has said over the years, between his obligation as a leader in hip-hop media and with all of his other ventures, this could even change their dynamic forever and maybe even cause the duo to split if Schulz continues to double down on what he is saying. And again, while it's too
Well, the thing is, Charlemagne has always defended Andrew no matter what. The dude was called alt-right Andy for a long time, you know what I mean? So I don't know if their relationship will sever. You never know. If Andrew continues on this path, Charlemagne may have no choice but to end their friendship. Who knows, man? But Andrew has definitely benefited from using the culture to get where he's at.
too early to see how all of this ends up, and with how much of a conversation this has already been and how much attention and backlash it's bringing Schulz, I'm sure he's going to continue to talk about this and maybe even dedicate more time to it in an actual
most
comedy
definitely.
special for now, due to the way people just can't handle Kendrick Lamar coming at them and calling them out for whatever reason. We have seen another public figure with so much at stake just make such a tasteless move to try and win their back and forth with him, and the outcome could not have been worse. But with people both like Drake and Schulz, the greater question we have to ask is that in these pivotal times when your greatness could come out, how do you manage to not just disrespect people, but also the very art form you try and represent when doing these responses? Because both for Drake and rap and Schulz and comedy, they just never made the respective mediums they created look worse by aiming for such a low bar to call somebody out with. And really,
Like I said earlier, most of the stuff that they try to get off on Kendrick Lamar have been surface level. To call him short, to say he has little feet, do you think the guy has not heard those jokes since he was a child? Those jokes are obviously going to have no impact. Andrew wasn't even called out by name, and I honestly don't think he was even the one being called out primarily. I really do think that bar was meant for shits and gigs. I feel like those were the guys Kendrick was basically trying to hold accountable for actually letting that incident happen.
When we look at both Drake and Andrew Schulz in their own ways, when you understand their careers and the places they hold in their respective fields, you will see that they are really two different sides of the same problem. Because when it comes to actually
Well,
representing
they
the
both come
culture
from
of the thing they
privilege.
are from, since they have been deceiving people for most of their careers because they don't actually have the real talent it takes to make it, they just crumble in these times where the most skilled artists show how great they are. So overall, as we see Kendrick Lamar take another person's career away just with a few bars, it's never been more clear that he is the boogeyman, because even outside of rap and hip-hop, he is now causing the downfall of people's careers in far other mediums.
Uh,
And so now with all this said, let me know, what do you think of this entire situation?
Honestly, Andrew should have just been excited that somebody referenced him. At the end of the day, he chose probably the worst way to react to this, which was to make a joke about grape, which I feel like most of us believe is not funny at all. He definitely could have went viral without having to say that joke. I do think he's going to continue to double down in this situation because he's basically giving that advice to others that have been going through the same things. And I really do see him just doubling down and honestly probably even saying more wild stuff. But you got to be really careful because he's definitely built his career up to the point where now he's getting these big interviews, these big sponsorships, and you can lose that very quickly if these advertisers feel like you're going to scare away potential customers. So you definitely got to use caution, which I don't know if Andrew Schulz is capable of. I do expect Charlemagne to side with Andrew Schulz for now, whether it's Drake or Andrew Schulz now. I feel like it's wild that these people do more damage to themselves than Kendrick. And if Andrew's not careful, he'll be right back at the Comedy Cellar. But definitely let me know what you guys think. What do you guys think about Andrew Schulz's Kendrick Lamar comments? Did he go too far? I obviously think he did. I feel like there's so many ways he could have handled that. He chose to go the most extreme route, which is obviously something that he's been doing. And with the more success, it's definitely emboldened him to go even crazier. I feel like the dude thinks he's Teflon because he's a comedian. Those arena tours can stop very quickly if the advertisers decide that you're too dangerous to be tied to their product. Time will tell, but definitely let me know what you guys think. Do you guys think Kendrick will respond to any of this stuff? I honestly think we'll probably get the same indirect bar, you know what I mean, with his name not being called out again. But definitely let me know what you guys think. Definitely hit the like and subscribe button, guys. Guys, the channel has been doing amazing, and honestly, it's all thanks to you guys. This past month has been exponential in terms of growth for the channel, and honestly, it's all thanks to you guys. I definitely want to thank you guys so much for making this channel a part of your day, and I want to let you guys know how grateful I am for the dialogues and the conversations you guys leave in the comments. That's definitely one of my favorite parts, so I'm definitely looking forward to what you guys have to say on this situation. I feel like Andrew Schulz thinks he's invincible because he's a comedian, but even that has its limits. You still gotta be funny, fam. And that was not funny. But definitely let me know what you guys think. I hope you guys love the video, and I hope to see you guys soon. Kendrick can win a beef by not saying nothing, man. But these people are gonna hang themselves.